Questioning means if there's a question, generally, that means then there's an answer. Hi, welcome to Seeking to Remain. My name is Kate. Thanks so much for joining me as we continue to move forward into this Lenten season. This upcoming Sunday is the Transfiguration reading. It's not actually the Feast of the Transfiguration. It's just the second Sunday of Lent. But we get to hear the Transfiguration reading and story as written by Mark. And as you know, we've been in the first chapter of Mark for quite a while now. We get to move beyond that. We're going all the way into Mark chapter 9 for this week as we continue this trajectory. It's really an interesting shift what the church does for us, because last week Jesus was in the desert in what would maybe be a low place or a deserted place, a place of scarcity, far from God in his temptation, led by the Spirit, but then left to be tempted. Here, this week, we have the opposite, where Jesus is up on the mountain. And in the Bible, up on the mountain is a metaphor, is a way to say that this is someplace close to God, close to the heavens, as high as humans can get. Moses receives the 10 Commandments on a mountain. Abraham follows God's command to sacrifice Isaac all the way to that last moment on a mountain. Important things happen on mountains. It's a biblical allegory, metaphor. There's a word for that. But it's important in the Bible. So if something says it happens on a mountain, it's saying that this is something happening close to God. Humans have gone up to God and God comes down to meet them in the mountain, or at the mountain, on the mountain. My words are getting tangled. Anyway, they're on a mountain. And so the Transfiguration, brief rundown, Peter, James, and John go with Jesus up the mountain, and Jesus rises before them, and his clothes are transfigured. He is transfigured. He becomes white, as Mark actually gives us a little detail, such as no fuller on earth could bleach them. His clothes became dazzling white. Elijah appears along with Moses, symbolizing the law and the prophets, that Jesus is this fulfillment and they converse with one another. If you're interested in what I talked about last year, I talked about how Peter's response is an interesting one, how he kind of turns things to say, it's good that we're here in this amazing space where we're seeing this incredible thing. And some lessons we can learn from him. So I will probably link that video at the end, if I remember, or just the Lent playlist. There's a lot of good stuff there if you need some more Lent content in your life. But this year, I wanted to think about how they go back down the mountain. So Mark says, as they were coming down from the mountain, he charged them not to relate what they had seen to anyone, except when the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what rising from the dead meant. Questioning. They questioned amongst themselves what rising from the dead meant. And it doesn't really matter what rising from the dead means for our conversation today. That's a different conversation. I'm curious about the attitude that they approached this topic. It says questioning. Questioning means if there's a question, generally, that means then there's an answer, right? It's like those two things go together, Q&A. I have questions, you have answers, we dialogue back and forth, and we come to some kind of understanding, or at least, those questions get answered. Which means they expected answers, questioning amongst themselves, debating amongst themselves. Well, what do you think this means? Well, I think it means this. Well, he said this, so maybe it means this. And we saw that. So, and this piecing and, all that kind of stuff, which is a very normal human response when we have something that we don't understand. We question it. We are curious. We want to know more. I would like to counter this questioning mode with another Bible story where someone is presented with mysteries beyond their comprehension. And they're shown something, they're told something that they don't understand. And that person is Mary. And she has all these experiences. She has the Annunciation, she has the Visitation. Jesus is born, the shepherds come, the Magi come. They present Jesus in the temple, and Simeon tells her that he will be the rise and fall of many in Israel, and that a sword shall pierce her heart. Fast forward to the 12 years, Jesus in the temple. Wouldn't you know I would be going about my Father's business? She continues to be presented with some pretty big mysteries and unanswered questions and situations. But the Bible doesn't say that Mary questioned these things. It says that she held all these things close and pondered them in her heart. To ponder means to think deeply about something, to take your time with it, to consider, to be thoughtful, in Mary's case, to be prayerful, and to push off whatever that decision or choice or question that you have is, because you're taking that time to ponder deeply and carefully what you have been presented with. So I'd like to challenge you to think about those two modes when it comes to things of God, especially when it comes to things in your life that perhaps you don't understand. Is there a place for questioning? Yes. Is there a place for pondering? Yes. And I know for me in my life, I'm much quicker to jump into a questioning mode than a pondering mode. To question, why have we had to wait so long to find out where we're moving next? Rather than pondering, what could God be teaching me through this extended period of waiting? That just happens to be the example off the top of my head. You can fill in the blank with whatever you have going on in your own life. Again, both are places that God accepts we go to. Jesus doesn't tell the disciples that they are incorrect for questioning. But I do think that Mary's is probably held in higher regard. So I'd encourage you this week to take some time and perhaps ponder those questions instead of letting the questions irritate you and poke at you. Take some time to ponder. I hope that you have a blessed week. I'll see you next week.